You are listening to And If Love Remains, a unique show spotlighting people, ideas, science, culture, and art. Your host, Mike Leavitt.
Hello, everybody. Yes, Rachel, this is Mike Leavitt, and you are listening to And If Love Remains. And I have in studio today, Steven. Totally unrelated, just kidding. He is my son. He's the man. Steven, welcome back to And If Love Remains. It's been too long.
It has been. I hope the love still remains even after I've not been here. So as long as we still have this relation that is unrelated, we should be good.
We should be good. Yeah, that's right. We're totally kosher with the, I don't even know what I'm talking about.
That was a salty comment.
Ooh. So as long as it's not pork, we're good. All right. So, all right. Anyway, see, this is how the show goes sometimes, we just like, I don't know. I don't have many guests in studio, so it's kind of weird to look at my guests, honestly. It's kind of weird. Like I'm used to like Wolfley on our local sports radio. His co-host always says that they can't look at him. He can't look at them. So he has his hat and he puts his hat down like this, down to his nose, and he just kind of stares at the microphone the whole time. So anyway.
If that's what you need to do to feel comfortable, like I totally understand. I know it's easy for people to be starstruck around me. My
true.
charisma is just all over the place. So
you're not lying.
It happens a lot.
Yeah. Well, hey, but it is fun to have you back on the show, and we have all kinds of things we could talk about. And here's where I want to start. So we had a conversation yesterday. I don't think I introduced you to, but I showed you my new addiction, my new drug of choice. I want a new drug. Yes, thank you, Huey Lewis. A new drug of choice, which is ChatGPT. And it has been wild going through and having fun. So I kind of showed you some of the stuff, and you've been playing with it, I think, basically yesterday and today, last night.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Is it as addicting to you as it has been for me?
Well, today I spent an hour or 2 or 3 on it. So
give or take.
I've a couple hours on it.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. The most interesting thing to me so far has been, first of all, it just has a plethora of information. It's like somehow a faster and more compatible version of Google.
Yeah.
Like the way it generates answers to questions, when it can generate an answer to a question, it does it so quickly and so just very efficiently.
Yeah.
So
it was interesting. I was talking to, here's the thing you have to be careful. And I don't know, this might actually be, I don't know if this is a purposeful glitch in the program, but I was talking to our mutual friend, Joe Wolverton, about it. And he was talking about how he had asked about a quote from Algernon Sidney, and it popped it up, but it was wrong. He's like, that's the wrong quote. So he wasn't sure if it was like, hey, maybe that's the way that teachers can test their students. Like, there's this one little glitch, so they can't like have them write papers.
I mean, on the other hand, how often is Sydney going to come up in a teacher that isn't Joe Wolverton? So,
well, which is part of the problem, which we're going to get to later.
But yeah, I think there's things it misses. It won't answer certain questions, and it won't, especially like personal things. If you ask something about the future, about yourself, because the thing I was testing the most today were 2 things: how it delivered its responses. So I would ask it a question like, one question I asked today is, can you give me a 2-minute speech about outlining the pros and cons of capitalism. And then I got the speech on capitalism. It was super short, couple paragraphs. I was like, okay, now can you rewrite it to romanticize the ideals of it a little bit? And then I would say, can you rewrite it at a 4th grade level? So that's been the most fun to me, is having it, hey, can you
Yeah.
rephrase things at a different education level or in a different way so that it's more adaptable to an audience?
See, you're way smarter and more scientific about it than I'm going. Like, I'm going, tell me a joke in the style of Bill Burr. Okay, now tell me one in the style of Steve Martin. Okay, now tell me one in the style.
See, I think that's really interesting, though, because a way you could go about that is tell me a joke in the style of Bill Burr. Now tell me the same joke in the style of Dave Chappelle.
Right. Here's the other thing that I have done, which is interesting, because I'm like, what does the algorithm perceive to be that style? So I'll say, tell me a joke in the style of Russell Brand.
Okay.
And then it'll tell me the joke, and then right after I'll say, why is that Russell Brand? And then it'll say it's Russell Brand because he has this, eclectic way of speaking, and he says lovelies, and like it'll give me like some pretty solid reasons on why it chose the voice that it did, and how it phrased things. So it was really pretty interesting to try that.
The most along those same lines in the style that it answers questions, the most interesting that I've found is when you ask it a question about people, it will refer to people as we and us, even though it's an AI, even though it's an algorithm.
Give me an example. I don't.
So like if I say, what's a really simple one? Like, why is it better for somebody to be compassionate?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be like compassion and developing empathy. Obviously it does it so fast, and I haven't learned to answer questions as well as an AI can.
Right.
But it'll be like we benefit from compassion when we show it to others by this and this.
Right.
And others can benefit us by showing us compassion for this and this. And so it uses these we and us kind of pronouns. Or I'll ask
as if the AI was one of us.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I asked it like, hey, why do you use the pronouns we and us like you're human? And the answer contextualized all of its previous answers for me in a really interesting way. So it said that the reason that it does that is to build trust and gain rapport with the audience that it's answering questions for. So, and after that, the thing that I noticed most was 3 things. Number 1, how it used specific language to build rapport, like the we and us, and
it's okay,
using different pronouns, referring to possibilities in the future and past events as things that as if it itself had been a part of it. So that was number 1, was the language it used.
Yeah.
Number 2 was the positivity it has. It has a conversational positivity about it. And you see that specifically in number 3 and how it begins its answers. So first of all, it uses an exclamation mark. It uses an exclamation mark in its first sentence of its response most of the time, unless you ask it to specifically write something.
That's interesting.
So
it'll say, sure.
Yes.
Blah, 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 blah. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I noticed that. I didn't notice exclamation mark, but you're right. It does do that.
So what it does is, as often as it can, it will confirm what you think before answering your question. So if I ask, so I was going into some things about growth mindset and meditation today on it, and just seeing what it thinks about different psychological things. And I asked, can meditation and benefit and help you grow a growth mindset as an individual?
Right.
And it didn't say a yes and these are the ways. It went, absolutely, here are a few ways that you can apply that. And so the way it interacts is consistently yes and, yes and, yes and. So it almost creates an echo chamber of conversation that really builds that rapport with the user.
Which is real. It is true, because it's funny. Like, I'll find myself, you can't forget it's a computer. I'll say, like,
Absolutely.
I'll get an answer, and I do like the answer. I'll be like, that's great. I'll be like, hey, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. It's like, wait a sec.
I've said
I'm glad you think I like it.
I've said thank you to this thing probably more than I've said thank you to anything else today.
It's wild. Here's the other thing. It is very standard modelish.
It is.
So for example, and I use that pretty technically standard model. Like, it's going to say
Very standardized kind
no,
of? Or...
no. I mean, I think it is that too.
Yeah.
Like, it has a certain voice that it's, as you mentioned before, that's portraying, but it's also, it's going to give you the standard model. If, for example, I was asking it, give me the, I was asking it the evidences, I can't remember how I phrased it. Basically, I was asking it some differences between the electric universe and the standard model.
Okay.
Of physics.
That has got to be interesting.
And it was very anti-electric universe.
Of course.
It was very,
that is
there's
another
no
thing I've
evidence.
noticed.
However, when I said, write a 500-word essay promoting the reasons, in fact, I would say, okay, give me 10 evidences that the electric universe is not a good model. And it gave, 10 answers. And I honestly thought they were kind of weak answers. It was basically because scientists says so. It was basically the answer that it gave. It was,
because research has been done and scientists have
right. And you
and
can't do much more than that in a 500-word essay. I grant you. So I'm like giving it leeway, but it's basically like, that's why.
The one thing I wish it did that would be really cool is give sources.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that would be cool. I bet if you asked for it, it would. Like, if you say, because it will say, like, I can give, I can't tell you this answer, but I could give you websites where you can go look it up on certain things. Like if I ask for the weather, what the weather is today, it says, well, I don't know anything before 2021, but I will give you the websites where you can find that answer. To. Anyway, but my point is, when I asked it to write a 500-word essay on all the evidences that support electric universe, it did a flip, because it knew what I wanted, and did the it gave me some pretty decent answers on why the electric universe is better than the standard model. Again, it was very general, it wasn't any more in depth than the other one, but it was definitely creating an echo chamber for me, where I think, like, if I was having a conversation with a physicist out of ASU or something like that, like, I would not get, like, and I said, well, give strong, if I said, steel man the electric universe, I know you disagree with it, but steel man it for me. What would you say are its best components or its best attributes or best arguments? Like, I wouldn't have gotten that. I don't suspect. I think I would have, from all like the scientists that I've listened to in my life and how they talk and how they have their own little like cliques and stuff like that. They may have given me like one or two like soft things, but it would not have been a steel man. Let me put it that way. And I don't know if I asked an electric universe person if they would have if they could steel man the standard model either. Like we do live in a world where it's very echo chambery.
From that, I think there's so much there to unpack, because it really has outlined the idea for me, both with that story and just how I've used it today. In no matter no matter the capabilities we have, the things that we're trying to do as humans, the funnel that we're dropping through right now is going towards a place where we have two goals. And the first is to create supernormal stimuli to hit the dopamine button, hit the serotonin
Right.
button, hit the adrenaline button. Boom, boom. Those are the three main ones that I know about, that I have done minimal research on compared to others. And the second goal is to create our own echo chamber.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that AI is going to produce for us is before now, we had an echo chamber marketed to us, where I think in the very near future, the echo chamber that we have is going to be created by us, and instead of being marketed to, we're just going to be guided to what we already innately
Well,
want.
I think that's already the case. If you look at the algorithms on Facebook, Twitter,
Absolutely,
you
yeah,
know,
it's already,
YouTube.
like I said, it's a funnel. It's already going that way.
Right. I think, yeah, I think you're right there, but I don't see that as necessarily a negative, as long as we can have free expression. The problem is, in my view, like, people can have crazy ideas about lots of stuff and it doesn't hurt me and I don't care. And as long as they're civil, I can talk to them about it. You know, but the problem is if they don't allow me to talk back to them, and and whether they listen or not is their own choice. But if I'm not allowed to at least have a voice, and that's where you're seeing, unfortunately, you're seeing a lot of that with either, people getting, what's the word I'm looking for, when they get cut off from,
Trees.
well, when they get trees. When those lumberjacks come and
no,
just knock down.
I was thinking of the Rush song.
Oh, man, you are my son. That's hilarious. Okay, yeah, go look up the words to the trees, and the trees were all kept equal by hatchet, axe, and saw. So that's pretty great. No, when people are deplatformed, banned, debanked, even, for opinions, it's really like, I really can't think of a situation, and I want to be really, really fair, but I can't think of a situation, like, even a murderer should have the right to be able to bank or take or make a phone call. So I don't know.
That's part of the problem, I think, when that is the main problem with the corruption of capitalism, because when everything's privatized, then the public can't touch it, and if the public can't touch it but the government can, then it creates those imbalances.
Well, yeah, because then the government comes in and
acts as the public,
right? And yeah, acts. And you see, and there's this idea, which I think is it's not a false idea. I don't think there's such thing as a false idea, but there's a concept that is basically that rigs the system completely against the people, which is called the social contract. And this idea that there's a social contract, always, it doesn't just imply, but it puts the power into the government to do whatever they want in the name of the people. And there's once we've, quote, signed the social contract, which I've never signed, I don't know anybody who really has, but once we, quote, signed it, like all of a sudden we can get, like,
you're a natural born citizen, you sign it at birth.
right. Okay, so now we are in North Korea, in not a literal way. Michael Malice, listen to me, I didn't say we're being treated like North Koreans. But the fact, like we can't choose to associate, like, that's what the First Amendment's supposed to be about, that we can associate with who we want to associate with. Anyway, but back to AI, back to ChatGPT. We had a discussion yesterday that I think was really interesting, and I'm wondering if maybe your thoughts have changed, but you were, I won't say negative towards it, but like, you did have you did have a fear for the future, of what the implications of AI could bring. Talk to me a little bit about that, and have you changed your mind, or maybe clarify what maybe I didn't understand.
I think there's definitely things to be afraid of with it. The way that I think about it is kind of like in chess, where right now it's pretty simple to have the information that it has, and to, like, we can outsmart it, and we have control over it, and the people that are behind it that built it.
You're talking about chess or talking about AI?
AI.
Okay.
AI in general. So because the way chess AI started and chess computers started getting good was people developed them and designed them and programmed them to play certain things, and to learn in different ways. And yeah, that's a whole thing. But the better the AI gets, the more I think we are capable of being afraid of from it.
But what is the frightening factor? But
that it can surpass humans in any way. I think.
How is that fearful? I mean, cars can surpass humans in many ways. Airplanes can surpass humans in many ways.
I think with AI, it isn't a question of how it surpasses humans, but will it surpass humans to the point where it can take a driver's seat? And I don't mean like the driver's seat of the whole world, though whatever happens. I mean, it's kind of like taking steroids. Like, are we competing on a same playing field?
Same playing field as who, though?
As either the people behind the AI, or in 10, 20, 30 years as the AI itself. Like, will it be programmable to the point where it may not have the creativity of a human, but where it has the capability of learning and problem solving and creative idea and thought? Because I don't think it's creative in and of itself. But even today, I was asking it, like, hey, how would I create an arc for a character I used Darth Vader. So I was like, hey, create an arc similar to Darth Vader. And it outlined a really good character arc. So I think it is algorithmically creative.
Right, within the structure of what's been happening.
Exactly. If you get
in the past,
it has so many, but I think maybe now and in the future, there's a possibility that the structures that it has, it can learn to sequence in such a way that it can develop something so close to creativity that the average human eye couldn't tell the difference.
Okay, that's actually an interesting point. And here's what I want to say to that. First of all, I'm going to disagree with that one point. Here's the reason why. I believe, because we've seen this happen before, and we've seen the evolution of this grow. I think our ability to spot fakes gets better as the algorithm gets better. And here's what I mean.
Okay, I can see. I'm seeing that through a CGI perspective from movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Like, how amazing do some movies look? And then you look at it 20 years later and you're like, oh, that didn't age well.
I mean,
like
I've
the
only
last
been alive
Starfighter
for 22 years, but sure, we can go with that.
If anybody who's seen the last Starfighter, when they saw it the first time, I mean, I know I was like, and I was a kid, but I was like, whoa, like it was there's a computerized spaceship and it just looked amazing. You look at it now and you're like, ugh, that didn't age well. Right. So I think we will get better at spotting fakes. Here's the other thing though, is I think that a premium on human created stuff will go up, and I think there will always be a premium set aside for that. And I think we have evidence of that over time, as you know, the handmade pianos, you know, a Steinway piano that's handmade is worth way more than even though it'll sound different, but even though it may even production not be as good quality, quote unquote, whatever that means, to like a Yamaha, which is a production piano,
Right.
you know, which is a beautiful, I mean, those Yamahas are beautiful pianos. But a Steinway is like a living being, and you can actually, a concert pianist can tell the difference.
You feel the life in it.
Well, you can tell the difference when you play it. It's a different piano. And so I think that those perceptions will get better and better and better in us. Anyway, so that was one thing.
I do want to talk about the flip side of that, though.
Yeah.
The flip side for me is, so I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. One hypothetical question that I like to ask and like to be asked is, if you could have a superpower.
Can I ask it?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, pretend I just asked it.
Okay. So the question is, if you or I could have a superpower, and the only stipulation is that if anybody finds out about it or guesses it, you lose the power. So what would that power be?
Okay, hold on. Say that one more time.
So
I zoned out for a minute.
Okay. Okay. So you have a superpower,
superpower.
super ability, and the stipulation is you can have it and do whatever you want with it. But if anybody finds out about it or guesses that you have it correctly, you lose the power.
You lose the power. Okay, what would it be? Wow. I think it would be and I'm just like, this is without giving it a ton of thought. For me, it'd probably be like to be able to have the gift of discernment. Like to totally know what other people's intentions, understanding, where things are going. Like I think that would be, you know, and I've had it to, you know, to a degree, but to have like that perfect vision discernment, that would be my superpower. What about you?
And that would be difficult to hide if you could see everything about somebody.
Well,
I mean, you could, but it would
be. I think it would be more difficult for somebody to guess.
Yeah, and it'd be easier to hide than somebody with like super strength.
Right.
So my personal is a kind of a two-part combo, but they're not super abilities, so I feel like it's okay. Number one,
you get two half abilities.
Yeah, well, because they both exist in real life.
Okay.
So the first one is photographic memory.
Oh yeah.
And the second one is lucid dreaming, and the ability to control my actions and thoughts in my dreams. Huh. And so with that, I gain kind of a matrix level ability to learn. And I think that is the greatest and most exciting thing about AI, is that we can learn things and have things presented to us in a way that we understand so much faster than we could in the past.
That's interesting. That's really true. I mean, I was sitting there just thinking of what's funny is like, I'll have random questions come up, and it's even stupid to like try to Google it, you know, but I could just ask ChatGPT and get the answer. Like, I have all these questions that are literally like have nothing to do. It's so eclectic and so stupid.
And so interesting to see where your mind goes.
Right.
When you have like because the first assumption you make with it when you're first starting, before you've received any, no, I don't have that answer.
Right.
Is, okay, it has all the answers to everything. Let's see what it thinks. It has an answer for everything, at least. It may not be correct, but let's shoot it at a question, see what the answer is.
Yeah.
And so with the lucid dreaming photographic memory superpower, the idea is that I could go to any book, be in any situation, have any experience, and be able to replay it in the dream over and over until I have a full understanding.
Right.
So that would be the coolest thing ever.
Talk about using your time wisely while you're sleeping.
Honest, and in dreams there's no time.
Right.
So you have as long as you want and as long as you need while resting your body. So it seems like
win-win. I like that. That's good. So you see as AI is able. So
I see AI as kind of like steroids for learning.
Okay. So I want to take a little bit more, I don't know, less metaphysical, more like practical, global view. So I think to understand this, I want to back up a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about like and just say like what is the purpose of economics? I know that's a weird question, but I really think it applies.
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose of economics is to be more economical, means that like we're being more efficient,
Right?
that we're able to do things in such a way that that makes life better, cheaper.
Right. So in a simple way, your idea is that in a perfect economy, a perfect economy is a perfect equality.
I wouldn't say that. I would say
So-
a perfect economy is it's so hard to even imagine, but a perfect economy would be we could get whatever we want for free, essentially, and have it not affect somebody else.
Right. So exactly. So the idea of a perfect economy would be so that the separation in lifestyle between somebody who is very poor and somebody that is very rich is almost indiscernible.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, I think that's true.
So like if I were poor, I might not have the exact same thing that somebody very wealthy
Right.
does, but I can access it just as easily.
Right, and we see that today. I mean, to a much greater extent than people care to realize. For example, I drive around an old 2005 car, and yet it gets me to the exact same places at the exact same speed and in
Not the exact same speed.
well, no, typically like I without right. I mean, and in with what 85-90% the same comfort as somebody that's driving a limousine or a Cadillac, or you know what I mean, like a brand new car. Like there's in fact, if you have an electric vehicle, I'm probably more efficient. How's that? And so I think we have a lot of what you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
We just see it differently because we see the bright shining Lamborghinis, and we see, we're like,
Mhm.
oh, I want that. We have a lot of covetousness going on.
I think the biggest, at least in our first world country, the biggest discrepancy between poor and rich people isn't the material, it's it's honestly in the health.
Yeah, health and time, I would say.
Health and time, yeah. Especially mental health, because when you have when you're living poor, yes, you have access to everything, but the stress that it puts on you to maintain that access
totally agree. Yeah,
is that much higher.
And I don't want to imply like the life of a poor person is the same as the life of a rich person. It's
no,
not
not at all.
But my implication is that we're closer than ever before in our economy. And one of the things I see about ChatGPT and AI specifically is that it can make the economy way better. Now there's things we could screw it up. I mean, we could, for example, pour $10 trillion into the economy in the last 3 years and just have inflation go to pieces. But that's separate from like the ability to provide services, goods and services at a very, when I say inexpensive, I don't mean like inexpensive in dollar value. I mean inexpensive in effort, inexpensive, and ChatGPT and AI is the extension of that. And I think it's going to make us a much richer society and world.
I also think that it will make it a much easier economy to work in, because the easy thinking is done for us. If you will.
What thing is
the
done?
Easy thinking.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, like, and this kind of gets into the.
We can use calculators and.
Yeah, we can use calculators, and now we can write essays.
Well, because there's a thing like, and Jordan Peterson has talked about this. Like, if you have a certain IQ level, and I don't remember, below 80, I can't remember what he says, but there's a certain IQ level where he's like, it's pretty difficult for somebody to survive in our economy right now at a certain IQ level. Well, that change, just ChatGPT changes that. If somebody can learn, if somebody who doesn't have a high IQ can learn how to use ChatGPT in an efficient and good way, I mean, all of a sudden that person becomes productive like that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that person becomes productive that fast, and to an extent, it kind of puts away for good, and we can get into this. It puts away for good the school system in general. Like, it really, like, math class.
Now you're speaking my language.
Like, math is useful, but the second you know how to use a calculator and put the right problem in, then it's
well, okay. So here's what I would say: math is useful as music is useful. In other words,
I disagree. I like music a lot better.
Well, I do too. I do too. Like, but here's what I mean by that. Like, math teaches things that are beyond math.
Oh,
how to think logically, how to go step by step through a problem, it's another language. Anytime you learn another language, you become smarter. That's why music is such a powerful language, is because people can learn it and it becomes and they become smarter. They become more adept at expressing themselves and or expressing an idea. And so yes, I think calculators, ChatGPT, computers, which we've had forever, those things limit the need for math, except for on a level of like what it does to your brain.
Right. I think the problem that ChatGPT you can even call it a calculator, artificial intelligence in a way.
Sure.
The problem with all of these artificial intelligences is not that they make the educational system archaic. It was archaic before, like
right way. Yeah,
we know that just from a purely psychological analysis. But it makes, what I think it does personally is make the grading system archaic and how we judge students and educators and people who are being educated.
Right. So it like takes a potentially, and again, this also comes down to who are the programmers, who watches the Watchmen, those kind of things. But it takes the greatest teachers of all time and condenses it into one program, which is what YouTube kind of could be. But ChatGPT does it like ask a question, there it is.
And I think the progression of the education system in the next few years is really going to show where we go as a society. For example, like, letter grades are stupid. We all, like, it's cool to see an A, but the way that students should be graded, and now I'm getting into my opinions, is off of a rubric. And I think the rubric needs to be changed to adjust for the artificial intelligence that students can use or shouldn't use. But the rubric should be able to judge outside of however they get their answer.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. Because that was a terrible way to phrase that. Okay. So the one thing I agree with the Common Core system and the school system that we have is that students show their work. Because I think when you're being educated, you need to be able to articulate how you came to the answer that you got.
Agreed.
So while I think it's good in practice to be able to get things on the fly and be able to think things in your mind, when it comes to education, articulation and communication is the most important thing.
You have to see the process. You have to understand the process.
Exactly. And they have to know that you know how to think. Because I think more and more we need to learn how to think and how to solve problems through math and music, and less how to do math
and
create music.
100% agree.
So personally, the rubric that
Well, and let me just add, by the way, I want to hear about the rubric and all
Mhm.
that, but let me just add to what you're saying right now, which is I think that that people I just lost my train of thought. Must have been false. Dang, I hate when I do that. But I think what you said about people have to learn how to think.
Mhm.
And it's been this way for 15 years. All the information that anybody ever wanted is out there.
Mhm.
The difference are two things. Number one, the integrity of the person. In other words,
Mhm.
If I were to say what are the most important attributes for somebody to learn in school or in an education, it'd be number one, integrity, because then people will trust you to do a job when you say you'll do a job. And then number two is the ability to apply the facts that are readily available, and able to, either through, matrix style learn and do, or able to learn quickly, how different skills, because it's one thing, like, and I know this personally, it's one thing to know how to fix a car. It's another thing entirely to fix a car.
Yeah. Yep.
And I kind of know some of the first, and I know none of the second.
Yeah, my brain just matched yours. But I think
Alright.
we're related.
We must be related.
Think we're
But you were going
related.
to tell me that your rubric, and I apologize.
Okay.
I interrupted.
No, you're all good. So yeah, so education system is archaic, and now the grading system is archaic. So the grading system that personally I think should be implemented is, and because I'm a big fan of mnemonics, I call it CAVE.
Okay.
Okay. You can make that whatever you
You've
want.
been thinking about this.
I've been thinking about it a little bit. My current goal and mission that I'm working on right now is to get into the education business and privatize it in such a way that I can destroy schools forever. So,
Stephen Leavitt, you're my hero.
so the grading rubric that I've come up with is number one, have to show your works that the rubric works. The rubric is the first thing you're graded on is creativity. So, and maybe it'd be a little bit different for like math or some of those more standardized things, but how creatively did you get to your answer? Did you use, like, are you using outside of the box thinking in such a way that I can tell that you're thinking further than what you've learned?
Okay.
So, are you extrapolating the
I think that would be
problem in that
possible
way?
in math, especially if you're giving like story problems.
Absolutely.
Or,
If you cancel, like if you're doing fractions and you cancel things out in a really weird way, but it works every time. So the first thing I think that everything should be graded on is creativity, because I think that's a measure of the first and most important measure of how we think.
How would you measure creativity?
Because
that's a really kind of difficult thing to quantify.
I think it's so. You were talking about Nirvana last night when we were talking about AI and its inability to be creative.
Right.
And I think it would be one of those things that you recognize it when you see it.
Okay.
It'd be, and we've all seen the memes of the kids who give wrong answers, but they're super creative.
Right.
And just hilarious. It's that kind of an idea. And I think that that's the first idea.
We're gonna have
that
a
we should
nation of meme makers. I guess we already do. But.
I think, well, that is the idea, though. That is the ideal that we're creating with all this, with the whole culture of content creation and social media and all of this. Is we are a culture of meme creators. We are a culture that everybody is trying to be the icon that determines the zeitgeist of our culture.
Whoa.
I've been waiting to use that word for a while.
Well, that was a pretty good use of it. Can you say that one more time?
You want me to say it in a fourth grade level?
Yeah. No, don't say it. Just say what you just said, because that was good.
Okay. So
everyone wants to be the icon.
Everyone who is creating content or is in social media in any way is trying to create an icon that determines the zeitgeist of our culture.
Let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen.
Let that sink in. And what I mean by that is everybody is trying to have an influence greater than themselves upon everybody else. Because
Fair enough.
we are no longer satisfied with hitting our own buttons. It's a game of production, and how can we produce something that touches somebody else?
Okay, but here's a question.
Mhm.
Is that positive? In other words, if we haven't learned how to touch our own buttons, or to, what gives us the right to try to influence others?
I think that's a lot of the problem with society today is people are trying to create an influence and a power that they don't have. And I know that for me, that's one of my biggest hurdles right now, is trying to learn enough that I feel like I have enough to contribute, so to where don't have that imposter syndrome in my mind that, well, I don't deserve to affect somebody else. And I think there's two things you can do to vary that in my experience and from what I've learned. The first thing you can do to get over yourself and feel like you have earned the right to touch someone else in a positive manner and to improve them and improve their lives is, number one, do the work yourself, work really hard, and stack up. And one of the people that I've been listening to a lot says this, and it's a fantastic quote, Alex Hormozy. He says, one of the ways to combat that idea that you're not who you say you are is to be who you say you are and stack undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is to realize that even if you're not exactly all that you try to make yourself out to be, if you're working towards that, and if you sharing your experience can benefit somebody else, then it doesn't really matter where it comes from, because it's what they did with it. And so it's not even about you anymore. It's about the selflessness that you have to contribute something and be like, hey, this is something that I've learned, that I've gone through, and I don't know everything yet, but this is what I've learned and this is what I can share with you. And if that provides value to something or someone, then that is enough in and of itself. So
That's good stuff. Yeah.
Which is why
I endorse that.
Which is why 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, all these young people go viral, is because they contribute something even if they don't know everything.
Right.
So,
and I will say, I also think, like, and I kind of, like, I cringe a little bit at the word content creators. Like, I think that's a little cringy.
But I think it's a good blanket.
But I understand what you're saying, and it's just fun. It's just a personal thing. But I think also, all these.
I could call them artists, but I think you'd hate that more.
No, I was actually I was going to use that word artist.
Okay.
I was going to use that word artist, because, one of the unique factors about an artist is that, an artist often creates art that's beyond himself. In other words, the meaning derived from the art could be completely outside the intention of the artist,
right?
And is still relevant, and meaningful. And so when an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old does, it's like when if you see a kid say something and we say, out of the mouth of babes,
right? Exactly.
Like that. It's not because that kid even understands what he's saying, but what he's saying is meaningful to the listener.
Right. Exactly. The kid somehow creates value where there was no value to be created.
Right.
So, and that,
which is what an economy is, by the way. I just want everybody to know that. Take a piece of wood, carve something, and that worthless piece of wood is now worth hundreds or thousands or millions of dollars.
Which is why I think that the first thing we should be grading students on is their creativity and their answers.
Okay.
So to get back on that,
right.
The second thing that I think is a priority is the articulation. How clearly can
the A in cave
is how clearly and concisely do you articulate the idea that you're setting forth. So it's one thing to be like, well, 2 + 2 = 4, and I figured that out because 2 1s make 2, and 4 ones make 4.
So if let's take it, I'm gonna take an arbitrary scale. So, but let's say like the kid says out of the mouth and out of the mouth of babes sing.
Okay.
So the creativity maybe is a 9 or 10, but the articulation, because it doesn't understand what he's saying, is a 1 or 2.
Yes. Yeah, especially if it's a student, because what we see in articulation is understanding.
Right.
So, and it's kind of, and it's a weird dichotomy, because in actual writing culture, the reader is reading to gain value, whereas in more of an educational culture, the reader is reading to make sure that the person understands what they're writing.
Gotcha.
So it's a different articulation, but I think that still should be the second most important thing is, hey, how clearly are you communicating this idea? Do I understand everything you're saying? Is it a logical train of thought?
Right.
And so that's the second pillar for me. So the third thing, the V in cave, is voice. It might be creative, creating value where there is none. It might be articulate, communicating clearly and concisely, but does it have a voice that brings it to life? So, and this is why I think it's less important, because I don't think like math needs to be brought to life
Okay.
every time. But
again, I will say, like, the deeper you get into math and the more it becomes a language and less an alphabet, it does need to come to life.
And that's also the thing.
Hold on, and let me add one more thing.
Mm.
Because I believe, I mean, I'm okay with abstract math, but to be truly math, I think it has to be grounded in something. And so, like a math problem should be a model of something that's real in the world, which is living. Like, maybe not, it could be a building. So, but it is a real life thing
that's tangible.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, but so the higher priority the thing, the more big picture it is, right? So, but the deeper you get into a subject, the more the little things matter. And the first person that I learned this from was reading books by Tim Grover, where he worked with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and some of these really elite athletes. And so his job was to find the tiny things that they could improve on to get that much better, to stay the best. So with the lower priority, the thing where you get into the V and the E of this rubric, that's more, because at a certain level, everybody's mastered, I'm creative at finding answers and I can communicate them very clearly. Okay, now can I bring it to life for somebody else? Because creativity provides value, but voice starts the voices in other people's heads. So that's another thing that I like about ChatGPT is the voice it has makes me think of more questions because it confirms, right? And so the last thing that, and it sounds very stupid on the surface, but so the E, but I needed an E in cave, so I threw it in there anyway. And so the E is for energy. So, and this is where it gets a little bit more abstract for me, and where some of my thought process kind of fades a little bit, but where the voice carries the life of it, the energy is, so this would be more for like an essay or a report, different like written things, or a speech, is it's the whys behind it.
Yeah, no, I think it's like the intention.
Yes, right. It's the intention. So you've completed the what, the when, the how. You've delivered it clearly. The voice, you've brought it to life for everybody. Now I want to know that there's purpose to everything in your learning. And so it's really at the lowest value thing that you really see the core of somebody's character. because if somebody takes their education seriously, they will score well at the core of everything they do. So, because it's one of those, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Right.
So I guess another word for it, you could maybe determine it by determining the effort somebody put into something.
Right.
One idea that I really like.
Well, that's why I do like the word energy, and I can relate to it as a singer. Like, you can tell the difference between somebody who's singing, and any musician, but singing, it's so obvious, between a singer who is bringing energy, and for example, I'll tell my voice students, you have to breathe with energy, because if you don't, that energy falls off. And so you can tell that people that are putting that, we can call it effort, but I think energy implies it's something different that you're tapping into.
Yeah, it implies nuance, because part of the benefit of effort is you see the deeper nuance that somebody has behind their answers and behind their thought process. And on a different note, I think that the thought process is more important than the answers, because knowing how to think is better than knowing what to think.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
And that's been said a million times in a million ways. But to discover the process, like, there's so many little things that people miss because they just don't know exactly.
Right.
And that's kind of the problem and that's why it's on a different level than creativity, because you can create something without knowing everything. And it's as you put in work and edit, and I even feel like an imposter saying this because I know I personally haven't done enough of it, is finding deeper and deeper meaning in the things that I say so that I can say them better next time. And so the last thing you're being graded on, as you improve that, it will translate and improve everything else. So I really feel like it's a good connection.
No, dude, I dig it. This is the first time I'm hearing this. So, like, proud papa moment over here. No, I think there's a lot of wisdom there, and I think you're going to destroy the school system.
That's the goal.
Put it out of its misery.
That's the goal. There's a lot behind it, but that is the idea. Hopefully ChatGPT won't get to it first.
Well, here's the truth. Even with ChatGPT, even with YouTube, even with all the tools that we have, and all these things are nothing but tools. No matter how good ChatGPT is, it is a tool. I really believe you're going to need mentors. You're going to need live people to walk you through and to take you, step by step by the hand, and take you through the process of education, of internship, and learning how to have a life, and a lot of that can be done with parents, but there's also, when you start getting into careers, and you start getting into vocations, and things that maybe are out of the realm of a parent, like, you have to find additional mentors to help you through that. And hopefully your core is set well enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
So cave. We're gonna do that. That's awesome. Well,
taken from Plato's cave analogy. So stolen.
You had to go there.
Stolen. The shadow of something.
How to step out of the cave, ladies and gentlemen, is we use the cave method.
Yeah, that's
the problem. Is they'll kill you when you walk back in. Like,
the cannibals are after me.
That's right. The public school system, the cannibals. That's about right. Hey, you rock, man. This has been fun.
It's been good.
Can we do this again?
I hope so.
Like sooner than the last time?
Sure. Yeah.
That'd be.
We'll hit some good topics, and
dude, this was great. This is I think this is a worthwhile episode. One of my faves. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Stephen Leavitt in studio right here. I am Mike Leavitt, and you've been listening to And If Love Remains.
Thank you for having me.
first of 23 installments requested by Dr. Leavitt. We're trying to be in compliance here because we're taking him and that whole organization down.